Welcome to the Life Begins at Midlife podcast, where we pop the champagne to celebrate the unexplored joys and endless adventures that await us in the midlife. Flipping the script on what it means to hit those fabulous 40s, 50s and beyond. Because here, we don't believe in midlife crises, only midlife revolutions. Reminding you that the only thing we're letting go of at midlife is the notion that it's all downhill from here. Nope, we're here to climb higher, dream bigger, and laugh louder. Each week, we'll dive into the myths, share the truths, and unlock the secrets to making the midlife years your best years yet. From rediscovering lost passions to embarking on new adventures, we're covering it all. Expect candid conversations with inspiring guests who've turned their midlife years into their most dynamic chapter yet. We're talking to everyone from entrepreneurs who've launched successful startups from their kitchen tables to adventurers who decided age is just a number when it comes to climbing mountains or sailing the seas. So if you've ever found yourself pondering, is this all there is? Or you're just eager to embrace the richness of midlife with both arms wide open, then you, my friend, are in the right place. Grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's show the world that life doesn't just begin at 20, it begins again at midlife. And remember, in the Life Begins at Midlife podcast, the only rule is to live confidently, love unconditionally, and laugh uncontrollably. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Life Begins at Midlife. We've got the privilege of welcoming Greg back into the studio today, and this time we're going to be talking a lot more about hormones and how they affect us during midlife. So welcome back, Greg. Lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So yeah, we got talking on the first episode that we did together, and we realized that there was a lot more to be spoken about, on this topic, which is why we've got you back here to dive a little bit more deeper into the effect that those good old hormones have on us when we're going through our midlife. So do you want to share a little bit of your wisdom with us, please?
Of course. So where should I start? So obviously last time I talked more about how it is, I guess, the mindset part. So now we'll dive into a little bit of the what's going on biologically for women at this time of life. So perimenopause, menopause, the big shift, and probably the biggest hormone is estrogen, goes down permanently. So during your normal hormonal cycle, it tends to start high for the first 14 days, drops off, progesterone goes higher, food cravings go up, etc., etc. But when it gets to menopause, estrogen is just on the decline. Progesterone also goes down as well. So you get to this state where you're not as what we call insulin sensitive. So estrogen is very good at making you sensitive to insulin that's produced in your body. So that's one big problem, which is why often it feels like there's a big weight gain afterwards, because how you potentially ate before, you might be able to get away with a little bit. But as you move into perimenopause and menopause, you might not be able to get away with it as much.
Perfect. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. So all these sneaky bars of chocolate and things like that you can't get away with them as much as you could do in the I'll call them the good old days, because I think midlife is a good time anyway. But as long as we manage what we're eating and know what our bodies are doing, I think we can still enjoy life.
Of course you can. I think the other thing though is sleep is a massive problem. So again, estrogen does part of the sleep cycle. And obviously for a lot of women, when they get into perimenopause or menopause, sleep becomes interrupted. And it's a bit of a vicious circle, right? Because you've got this whole insulin blood sugar issue going on, which affects sleep, but the sleep also affects blood sugar management and insulin kind of thing. So you have to decide, where am I going to focus my energy first to start breaking the cycle? Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. So you don't try and fix everything together. You decide, am I going to focus on making sure that my sleep is improved which could then help out during the daytime, or do I focus on what I'm eating, which will then have a knock-on effect to? Yeah. So would you say it's whichever is the easiest, that I'm using inverted commas, because I think they all could possibly be an interesting fix, but maybe the one of least resistance might be the word I'm looking for.
And I would say for most people, it's sleep.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I would say sleep is easier to fix than diet for sure. Sleep, because it's only something you can do, it feels easier to fix that. Whereas food, you might be making it for the family, partner, whatever. So I think sleep is where I normally start with most clients at anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, because if you've now got to change everyone's eating habits just because you need to change, I think that could be an interesting topic of conversation.
Yeah, I think if you're going through these midlife changes, though, it's very important to have the family aligned with you and to talk openly about it. I think we mentioned it before that nobody talked about it, but now I think it's everywhere. So, about menopause and perimenopause. So talk about it first so you can get the family to come along with you. But definitely, if there's one thing I want to crack first as best as possible, it's sleep. Because what I think the issue is that we are like little kids still. So when we were all younger, our parents used to stay up and watch Dynasty or whatever was on late at night, and they'd send us to bed. And then as adults, we kind of get into this thing of like, well, now I'm an adult, I don't have to go to bed early. Blame my parents. So I think one of the big things we could do is actually less Netflix and more chill. So actually have a routine where you go to bed at a very good, decent time, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and start to regulate that. And then on the other side, wake up at the same time every day.
Yeah, I was reading about that a while back, because over weekends you tend to have that bit of like cheeky little lie-in and things like that. You think, oh, I'll catch up on my sleep on the weekend. And, that just almost changes your habit again for the week. And then the weekday you struggle again to be able to wake up, and your body doesn't quite know what it's doing.
Exactly. So even if you don't get out of bed, don't sleep in would be a big one, because when we awake, we're building what we call a sleep debt. So the longer you have that sleep debt, the more it accumulates, and then hopefully you get sleepier at the end of the day.
Yeah, so then
So
you'll
when
be going to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock instead of waiting until whatever ungodly hour of the middle of the night.
12 o'clock, falling asleep on the sofa, watching whatever on Netflix, and then have to scramble up to bed. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I must say, I've started going to bed. I think some nights I'm wandering up about 8:30 already. I go and have a bath, and then I end up really going to lie in bed, and I think lights out probably about 9:30 or something like that. And then I find that even on a weekend, I am waking up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I think, oh, it's a weekend. Why am I waking up so early? But
I think that's again a very like cultural conditioning that we've had, where it's like the weekend you only live once, whereas actually I tend to work with things on a 7-day basis rather than a 5-day basis.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
so every day of the week is the same. It's not Monday is the bad day of the week, and Friday we can go and let it all hang out and binge and do whatever we want.
Exactly. So I think the first thing you can do is try and look at sleep, and I think the next thing then with sleep is so I've said what's your routine, but number two is what do you eat before bed? So often a lot of women will wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, roughly. And what's happening there is often your cortisol has gone up, blood sugar has dropped, cortisol goes up to get more sugar into your system because it realizes it's too low. So you kind of have too low blood sugar people. And then you get up and you're like, oh, I'm awake. What's going on? And maybe be forced to go to the loo and all that kind of stuff. So something that can work really well is having something with some protein and some fat, maybe about half an hour before bed, like a Greek yogurt, maybe some nuts or something like that, just to keep your blood sugar stable through the night. can work really
That
well.
makes a lot of sense because I tend to wake up around about that time of night. I don't always get up and do anything. I try and lie out there and sort of meditate or do something like that so I can actually try and go back to sleep. But then I wake up in the morning and I'm craving sugar. I think, oh, I could do with a piece of chocolate now. And I mean, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. The last thing you should be doing is craving a piece of chocolate. So that makes
Exactly.
perfect sense.
Exactly. And that's what's probably happening through the night because, again, estrogen's gone down. You don't have that ability to regulate blood sugar as well as you did before. So that's why you get these up and down in the night, wake up. When you wake up in the morning, your first thing you want is there a handful of sugar I can just throw down my throat
Yeah,
kind of thing. So,
absolutely. Yeah, because I
yeah.
mean, I've given up taking sugar in any of my beverages, and so yeah, but it's that piece of chocolate is like, oh, I could just do with that piece of chocolate right now, and it just sounds crazy.
But you meant, a nice.
Yeah, no, 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 that's a tiny little, a decent.
Yeah, exactly. When people give diet advice that says have a square of chocolate, I'm like, that's the worst diet advice for most people in the world. Just
Absolutely,
eat.
that's torture. Just I'd rather not have anything than I can't have.
Exactly. So there was something else then. So then I guess the next hormone really to think about is thyroid. So again, around perimenopause, menopause, you'll see often in the data there's a big spike in women with underactive thyroids. Obviously, there's some with overactive, always happens, but underactive thyroid. So my suggestion here is get your thyroid checked. Like if you're finding it really hard, if your diet is like so good that I can check it and you show me everything you've eaten and things aren't changing, then we can start looking at your thyroid and going, okay, is there an issue? Because obviously what that might mean is A, you need medication, two, you might need lower calories than you would have had before.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So
Now,
get your
what affects the aches and pains? Because I know sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been hit by a bus, or I've run a million miles in the night, and I'm just like, oh,
So a couple of those things. So estrogen again is one of those things that doesn't help because it's going down and it has so many interactions in the body. That's one. Two, testosterone potentially going down. So women have testosterone just as men do. You just don't have as much, but that can also go down. And then number three, one of the biggest issues is you're losing muscle.
yeah, makes sense.
So and this is same for men as well. We're coming out of our peak years, and then muscle starts to go down. So it's what we call sarcopenia. Um, so what that means is you're just losing muscle mass. And what I found, especially if you've got old injuries as well, we tend to not do exercise on that particular joint or that area of muscle. It gets worse and worse, and as we drop in estrogen, etc., the aches and pains start to come out. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my god, this is really bad. So the one thing you could probably do is start to get stronger.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling with low back pain, so that's probably, yeah, all sorts of injuries from, yeah, dancing days when I was a lot more mobile and able to do things a lot more differently than what I can do now. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I think especially with things like lower back pain as well, we always look at just the back. Now, again, obviously, I'd suggest getting a scan if you've got major problems with it, but I'd also want to look at um, what's going on with the muscles above and below.
Yeah.
So, are your glutes strong? Is your upper back strong? There's some muscles at the bottom called the erector spinae at the bottom. Do you train that?
No, I don't do any training at the moment. So because my back is too sore. That's my excuse. I know, I know, I know. I'm not setting a very good example to the listeners at the moment, but it is an
Oh,
example of, what we're probably a lot of us are going through at the moment is
yeah, and it can feel painful to want to start when you suffer from pain. I get it. Um, I tore my Achilles tendon once, so it just went pop. And when I first had to do exercises on my calf, it hurt like hell. And I just had to just grit my teeth and just get on with it. And it can be hard. Totally get it. But it's one of those things where you have to break the cycle, I think, a little bit of, do I want to suffer with this pain, or do I want to maybe suffer a little bit more pain but actually start to work on it? And that's
Yeah,
the
you
choice.
know, if you're doing it with someone like yourself who knows what the body is doing and how it's meant to be doing things, then I think it's a bit easier to trust the process. Because if I just
Yes.
went on to, say, for example, YouTube now and I find some so-called, exercise guru that knew how to do something, I definitely wouldn't feel as confident to push through that pain.
Yeah.
I would think, I'm not quite sure. This is too sore. I don't. But if I was working with someone like yourself and you said to me, right, if you push through this pain, there will be a reward afterwards, whatever that looks like, because it'll be different for everybody. But I'd be more inclined to say, right, Greg, let's do it than with someone, like I said, on YouTube or something like that.
And I think that's the big problem. It's like we don't get help.
No.
Like, I don't know what it is. There's no badges for like suffering in silence. Like, no one gets a badge. In fact, actually, it's really weird in society nowadays how we, oh, my back. Oh, yeah, me too. Or my leg. And people actually turn on like,
Oh, my knees are sore. I'm struggling to walk up the stairs now. Oh, yeah, me
oh,
too.
less than your hip, then your back. And you're just like, wow. But I think there is this issue with not getting help for these things.
That's it. And that's with all the things, like you were saying, with the, you know, not sleeping at night. You just kind of think, oh, well, that's just part of life. I just need to suck it up and get on with it. But, you've highlighted that there's quite a few different things that could be the trigger. It could just be something simple like having something, a proper snack before you're going to sleep, not a chocolate chip biscuit.
Well, it does not count in this instance.
Yeah, and then if you get the correct help, it could be something simple, or by going for that blood test, working out that it is your thyroid, for example, getting the correct medication or changing something could make the world a difference in your life by having better
Yeah.
sleep and everything else that comes with it. So,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we weren't put here to suffer unnecessarily.
so
And
there's
there's
no chufty badge because I've been walking up the stairs with a sore back for however many months.
and even but yeah, and I guess even like your back, for example, we sit down so much. That's quite scary. So one of the things I decided was to get a standing desk just to help me stand a bit more because years of office work and you're just hunched over. So of course, if your chest is kind of come in a little bit, you're rounded. Of course, your lower back has to do a lot of work. So I think there are, like you said, sometimes very simple things, and some people are going to take more complex things. I get it, but it's what are you willing to do to change that situation?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I have bought myself a standing desk. Probably had it for about 3 or 4 years, but it's in a sitting position, so that doesn't really
All right, so your action after this is to go
help.
and
So yeah, so the thought was there, and yeah, now I've gone back and having it the height for sitting. So yeah, challenge there. Thanks very much to get the chair and actually turn it into a standing desk.
And I think the last area to really think about when it comes to hormones is your gut and how you eat. A colleague of mine always says to me, "We are what we eat. We are what we eat, absorb, digest, and excrete as well."
Very true.
So I think we don't look at the whole chain. We just look at well, I've had a chocolate bar or I've just had lettuce or whatever. But actually, what's absorption like? What's the gut life? Do we get bloated? Do we get constipated, etc.? Because all of these things, the body is reading all of these things, and hormones are being produced as a result of what's going on in the body.
Absolutely, because if you are bloated, then the body realizes that there's something not right there because we're not meant to be bloated, and then it's going to send all, it's like we used to call them when we learned biology, all these little army ants used to go out, like your different things go out, send all the little warning signals, and everything used to come back in again. And it's a bit like that, where you end up having too much. I don't know what it would be that you need, but you'll be able to tell us. But
Yeah,
be, yeah, you end up with excess or too little of certain things because of what you've eaten and how you've eaten it.
And you've just hit the nail on the head. So these are when people talk about inflammation, often that inflammation is caused by what we do to ourselves. And the body just trying to do its job is like, well, hang on a minute, this person isn't going to the loo regularly. Like that's not a good sign. So the gut wall is being impacted, etc. As inflammation, diverticulosis. So it's just like we do things to compound it, but we just don't listen to the signs, I think, is the big one.
Absolutely. And then that then impacts other things, like our skin's not going to be as good anymore and all that kind of goodness. It's not just the gut that's going to be affected. It's got a ripple effect out of that. Our brain function's not going to be as great either. I mean, things that you don't even associate with your gut. You know, your eyesight will probably be deteriorating as well because of all the toxins that your body's carrying around with you. So it's important to, yeah, especially at this time of life, to have that MOT, so to speak, and kind of like work out, take your body seriously, because it's not, you've only got one of them, and you don't want to be going into older age with a defective shell. You want to be able to have that in as best condition as you can. There was something someone said to me a few weeks back. She said someone had mentioned it to her, and he said, you're eating now for your 90-year-old body. And if you take it in context, it's kind of, or even if you take it away from just the eating, what you're doing today for your body, you're doing it actually for your 90-year-old body.
Exactly that.
And I thought that was huge.
Well, it's funny because one of my kind of vision for myself is that when I'm 90, I can rest on my son.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Or my grandchild. So therefore, what I do now is going to impact that future version of myself. And I think that has to be the mindset. Like the kids are grown up, you know, you don't have a limit, you have time, you have more, hopefully more financial freedom, but you can't enjoy all of those things if your body isn't able to do what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. And I think there can't be anything worse than having a mind that's still very active and almost got, everything still there, and your body is just packed up and you've got to like hobble around or have, I don't know, a
Yeah.
walking frame or something like that, or even, worse, you just can't even move around at all. I think that must be so claustrophobic. I think, I don't know what the word is, but kind of restrictive if you can't.
And I guess the problem is for many people is that it's easy to stay in that pain because it's comfortable. But you have to come, even though it's painful or it's miserable, it's still comfort. And I think it's you having to say, well, I'm ready to now live my life to my fullest, and I'm going to have to act like that person does. So that person would drink enough water, get enough fiber, eat enough protein, go to bed at a decent time, lift some weights or exercise in a way that challenges their muscles twice a week, etc. And there's so many studies which shows that the more muscle you have, the better survivor rates from things like cancer, diabetes, etc. So it's like your body's almost got its own medicine kit if you decide to look after it.
Yeah, it's like we said earlier on as well. It's you've got to take care of yourself, and look, you've only got one version. You can't just go to the shop and go and pick up another outer shell to be able to carry on with life. But yeah, it's been another interesting
I mean, if there's
conversation.
my pleasure. If
Carry
there's
on.
one,
Do you want to add something before we end off?
yeah, I was just going to say, if there's one book I would recommend to everybody, it's the is it Five Regrets of the Dying or Dead or something like that. It's a book that just talks about what people say on their deathbed and where they wish they'd been able to do stuff. It's probably a really good book to just to kind of get some peace with, first of all, that we are all going to die at some point, hey. But you don't want any regrets when it happens. You don't want to be lying there going, "Oh my God, well, I wish I'd gone to Peru and seen all the Aztec stuff, but I didn't because I couldn't walk up it." that's the way to treat, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. You've only got one go at this life, and make it the best that you can
Exactly that.
and look
So
after yourself. So yeah, thank you very much for your words of wisdom once again. And yeah, thanks very much, Greg.
thank you very much for having me. Bye.
Perfect. Thanks, bye. As we wrap up another episode here at Life Begins at Midlife, we want to take a moment to extend a heartfelt thank you to our sponsor, Jackie Bourne from Purpose Unleashed. Jackie's commitment to empowering individuals on their journey of self-discovery and transformation truly aligns with the spirit of our show. Whether you're navigating the challenges of midlife, seeking clarity on your next steps, or simply looking to live a more fulfilled life, Purpose Unleashed offers the guidance, tools, and support you need to turn your aspirations into reality. For those of you feeling stuck or at a crossroads, remember, it's never too late to redefine your path and embrace the life you've always dreamed of. Visit Purpose Unleashed website to discover how you can start your transformative journey today. Let Jackie be your guide to a more vibrant, purpose-driven life. You can find this link to the website in the show notes below. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and sharing your time with us. Remember, every day is a new opportunity to grow, to love, and to make a difference. Until next time, keep striving, keep dreaming, and keep listening.